And today it is my pleasure to have none other than Matimba Masingi. Matimba, he is from Matimba Properties, and I'm just in amazement with a couple of things that he's been sharing with me backstage. But I've known this brother for a while. We've been checking each other out. We've been friends on social media for a bit. And Matimba, he runs and owns Matimba Properties, and he is based here in Johannesburg. So it's just my pleasure to welcome Matimba. Matimba, welcome, and how are you doing?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, TJ.
Okay, good stuff. Matimba, maybe I'm just going to start asking about your name because the more I've traveled in Africa, I've met quite a lot of Matimbas. Either they have it as a name like you, or they have it as a surname. Predominantly of Southern Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Congo. Do you have any relations in those countries?
No. Not that I know of, TJ. Now, Matimba in the South African context belongs to the Tsonga tribe.
Right.
And simply means strength, power. It means power. Power to the people. Yeah.
Nice.
When I was born in the 80s, and I'm a product of Black Power,
Nice.
And my parents wanted to name me that,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. But I think with the Tsonga people, if I go back into my history, the Tsonga people, they're kind of like scattered in Southern Africa, I think.
True. All the way from the Malawis, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, some even in Zambia.
Yeah.
Although the dialect is changing a bit.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. But nonetheless, this is about property, and there is no any other time to learn but now, and we've just learned a little bit of history here. And if you didn't know anything about your history, there you are. We are all one coming through in the entire African space. But Matimba, let's talk about you. Who are you? Where do you come from? And I've been meeting you in the property space. But who are you? What do you do?
Well, strange enough, I come from a finance background. I studied finance and accounting. Worked for a few years in that space, but decided that no, property is what I want to get into. I was born and bred in Soweto, Deep Kloof to be precise.
Right.
But I spent most of my adult life in Pretoria. I studied in Pretoria. I have set up offices in Pretoria. Just generally, though I used to be in Joburg for some time, I've decided that Pretoria is the best place for me to set up shop and to run almost all my operations from here. Although I work in the whole of Gauteng, but Pretoria really is my base.
Okay, good. And when you talk about being employed at a particular time, how far back was this? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
This was in 2016.
Okay.
I worked for government as an accountant. In 2016, I had been employed, I think, for about 9-10 years.
Right.
And I then moved up the ranks within government in various positions.
Yeah.
But parallel to that, as I was starting to work for government, I at the back of my head, I really wanted to be in property.
Sure.
So both my careers almost started at the same time, even though I was moonlighting as a property investor from way back, that was 2009, So you could say that I had dual careers from day one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to speak about that, Matimba, because I think it's something that as a people, we kind of like distance ourselves away from it. This thing about having a job and you're getting a salary, and you're also having a side hustle, and you, as you mentioned, moonlighting. I did that for the longest time, but it also took a little bit of sacrifice and a lot of strains, because you're working what a lot of people would say long hours. But for me, long hours, that's my normal. So if I'm not pushing those long hours, I'm actually frustrated, you know, like we need to do something. When you were working for the government and you were moonlighting, I think moonlighting is kind of like a negative term, but let's say that you're running your side hustle, right?
Yeah.
Now, your side hustle, when you were running it, what created the awareness for you to actually start being in that space?
Look, I read Robert Kiyosaki when I was in varsity.
Okay.
Plus, I come from a family that's business orientated. You know, my dad is a demolisher. You know, buys, demolishes houses, and sells the second-hand building material.
Right.
I really started working from a very young age. I mean, I started working for as far as I can remember for him, and my dad went on to then open a factory that manufactured furniture out of the timber that he found from building materials, you know. So
wow.
The whole, before even recycling or repurposing was fashionable, that's what he was doing, you know.
Yeah.
And that for me gave me an idea that I actually remember saying to my dad. I said to him, look, why don't you take all this building material that you are making, instead of selling it, why don't you build your own structures and rent them out, and that should be your passion, you know?
Yeah.
Well, as life would have it, my dad didn't listen to me, but then after varsity, I then took up the concept, you know. I then took up the concept. I researched about it, and the first property that I bought was a flat. In 2009. I remember I just moved into a new job. 2010, I mean to say. I just moved into a new job. It was well paying. I bought my first residential property.
Right.
And about 6 months later, I went and I got a loan with the bank to buy a second property on auction, you know, dilapidated. It was in extremely bad condition, needed a whole lot of revamping. And so for me, the transition was almost natural, because this had been something that I had always wanted, you know, and I had read up about it, although I didn't have much experience in it, but I knew that I wanted to be in the property space and make passive income, because in my mind, property was one of those things that you could do quickly, and you could generate passive income while you were still working.
Right.
Little did I know that it requires almost the same amount of effort, or twice amount of effort, you know.
Yeah. And with that, Matimba, so now you have left. You are doubling up now at your employer, and you've got your first property going. Now, when you started, what was the thinking in your head? Was this just about buying a home or buying a property for investment? This is kind of like in 2009 on your first one. And when did you actually then transition to, like, say, hold on, this is actually a business, because now your business is called Matimba Properties. When did that switch happen for you from being an employee at the government and having that natural, like you mentioned, the natural switch to say, hey, I can actually go into this as a business, and boom, you actually found that this is actually full-time as well. How did that switch come to be?
Look, for me, there was no doubt in my mind that I had to leave the one to pursue the other from day one. I mean, I've never thought, even when I had that 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, you know, that I bought in 2009, 2010, it was a business for me.
Sure.
For me,
from the word
it
go,
was
it was a business for you.
business, and it was always about being cash flow positive at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to invest in a property that was going to make me in income in 5 years or 6 years time. For my strategy had always been
because you might not be
look,
there in 5 years' time.
might not be here in 5 years time, but most importantly, I've got needs that require me to be cash flow positive today,
Come on.
not tomorrow.
Yeah.
At the time, I was inspired. My motivation was that I had two boys that I wanted to get through to school, and every little cent that I had would, you know, try and patch up wherever it could. Plus, you know, as black families, we've got black tax. What do you call it? We've got black tax that we needed to subsidize. So I thought, for me, you know, growing the property business would allow me to expand my empire.
Yeah.
But most importantly, it would give me the necessary financial freedom as I grow in life to do other things. You know?
Right. I like that. And I like the fact that, I mean, from the word go, you looked at that as a business, you know. So did you ever stay in the first unit that you ever had? Did you ever stay in that unit?
Well, I did for about 3 months, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So what had happened is that I bought my first property, my primary residence.
Yeah.
And in 2009, and in 2010, I came across a bit of extra cash, if you may put it that way.
Yeah.
And I knew that in order for me to grow that extra cash, one of the best things for me to do was to invest in property. And then I decided that, you know, I renovated the property. It looked so good at that point. And I thought, why can't I stay here, you know? So I moved into that property because I was still living alone, you know?
Okay.
And I thought to myself, the house that I'm currently living in is about 800,000 rands. I'm paying a bond, but I'm staying alone. It's not fit for purpose.
Sure.
I had 2 extra beds in that house. And then I thought to myself, I might as well move into the flat, get 2 or 3 people to rent the flat with me, and
Right.
co-share while they pay for the bond and the levies and so on and so forth. And I pay for the other flat. And then, being a man of action, I went ahead with that idea, you know.
Right.
And I think I stayed there for about 4 months. Then the following year, I thought to myself, no, I'm going back to my place because I did the extra space. So yeah.
Nice. So Matimba, you've bought this property now, and you're now moving on to the actual business. I now know you to have almost like 3 types of businesses running. You've got Matimba Properties, where you do your investments. You've got Matimba, the consulting business, right? And you've got, I always like us to have guests, you know, whenever we are recording this. That's your daughter that right. Yeah. So you've got the consulting business, and you also do a bit of crowdfunding, right?
Yeah.
Just walk me through your business, where it is now, you know, from where you started off. You started off as an employee at the government. You knew very well you didn't want to be there for long. You moonlighted, as you said. And now you've got this business. It's literally almost about what? We can safely say around about 10 years later. And you've got a fully fledged business that you run. I mean, I've read some of your articles and things like that. Where are you now, 10 years later?
Look, I'm at the point where I've made a lot of learnings.
Yeah.
I'm at a point where I've invested in over 13 properties currently. I'm at a point where I'm also teaching other people now to invest in their properties.
Yeah.
But most importantly, I'm at a point where I'm now linking up with corporates, who really want to find space in townships and are looking for like an entry point, properties that are well positioned, land that is well positioned and is lucrative, and are really wanting to invest. I mean, I've got work with JSE listed companies now who, let's say, want to build a mall, want to build a tile manufacturing outlet or something in the townships, to people who want to build accommodation with about 300 beds, So I'm at a point now where I've been able to leverage off the relationships that I've built over the years and to meet up with key and important role players in the property industry and really grow the business, but also not forgetting my primary business, which is really student accommodation and so on and so forth, and back rooms. I'm also at the point where we have registered Matimba Properties with the EAB. I'm currently doing my NQF level 5 so that I become a fully fledged principal. Should be done with that at least by August. This will then allow me to really marry the two businesses together.
Right.
So this will allow me to, at the one hand, source the properties, and from the other hand, sell the properties, but also manage the properties. This will allow me to build a fidelity fund certificate, which would allow me to generate income from other people, use their income to grow the business. So there's a lot. The next 10 years will be the next 5 to 10 years will be like a point where I'm really trying to grow Matimba Properties into a fully fledged 360 degrees property management company, not just an investment company.
Okay. What is the dream here? Is the dream to bring in opportunities on the table, investments on the table, manage them, and you kind of like taking care of the entire 360 in the property space? Is that where the dream is?
The dream really is to educate as many people as possible to get into property.
Sure.
And for that, as I grow, I also bring other people along, you know. And once I've done that, then the dream really is to get into what you call A-list properties, A-grade properties, where we're able to build, construct, and manage portfolios of about 300 beds or 300 units upwards. The dream is also to build relationships with key stakeholders in the property industry, both locally and in Africa and internationally, so that they really understand the South African market, but most importantly, the township market. Because for me, the township market has so much potential. It's got so much untapped potential. I was speaking to a gentleman yesterday who said to me, Matimba, the article that you wrote about he works for one of the huge Big Five companies, in the property space. And he says, we've never thought about this. But if you can look at the people who take taxis to the CBD and to the suburbs who work in call centers, 90% of them are from townships.
100%.
If you were to construct a call center, multi-purpose office park in the townships, one, you would reduce the cost of transport for them. Two, you would make the cost of business for us extremely cheap. So we are looking into those innovations, into those relationships, and we're trying to grow from there.
Yeah. So, I mean, Matimba, you're in a good position now, and it's not just about time factor. You've been investing in townships for a while. I mean, 10 years, you've been investing in back rooms, and now you recently started off in student accommodation, particularly in townships. And some of the areas that we were speaking about, they excite me. The likes of Soshanguve is in the Pretoria. There's a varsity that was plugged there, and there's a ripple effect that the accommodation is not there, right? Is this where you see the opportunities, maybe?
Most definitely, most definitely. I mean, not just Soshanguve. I mean, townships around the whole of South Africa. I mean, I speak with investors from here to Kukule to Umlazi in KZN, and everywhere else. And I mean, the demand is so huge. Townships will drive, in my opinion, the post-COVID-19 recovery for real estate. Townships, without a doubt, the township market, without a doubt, will drive that recovery, the post-COVID real estate recovery. It's just a matter of us being smart about it and restructuring in such a way that it benefits, firstly, the residents of townships. Secondly, investors who are coming with this huge investment must know who and when to talk to.
Right. I like that, Matimba. You've got a business now that's running, and I know you're a family guy. You've got kids and so on. And I just want to see, how do you balance that? And well, let me start off by saying your crowdfunding, that's number one. That's time consuming. You are doing property rentals, that's time consuming. You're also doing sales, that's time consuming. You are studying as well, that's time consuming. You run the students' accommodation, that's also time consuming because the students are extremely demanding. I know them. And you still have your big rooms that could be a little bit chilled a little bit. But again, when the storms comes through, plumbing needs to be sorted because you also do your own maintenance, right? Those are kind of like, I've just counted, right? Maybe about 7, 8 things that you need to be doing as an individual in your business, right? How do you strike the balance between running the business, running your family, and looking after you?
Look, one of the things that I have come to terms with is that I can't do everything, you know, and therefore my ability to succeed will only go as far as my ability to build a solid, trustworthy, and competent team, so that I'm able to do some of these tasks too, you know. So building a team of people, lawyers, plumbers, accountants, electricians, the property managers is extremely important. And it took me a long time to understand this, but when I did finally understand it, I moved swiftly towards building a team. I mean, just yesterday, I had one tenant called me to say that a geyser burst, you know, in one of the apartments. And because I've built a strong team, I just picked up my phone and one phone call, we were able to resolve that. So building teams, building relationships with people, people that you trust, people that you can, over time, delegate some of your responsibilities to is important. That leaves times for everything. But I must stress that as an entrepreneur, having time to yourself is a luxury that you should save for the future. when your business is still young, I was not too concerned with anything else except for building the business. And although it's important that you have me time and so on and so forth, but entrepreneurs must take it upon themselves to sacrifice their time so that in the future they are able to reap the rewards. Work-life balance is a phenomenon that I hardly ever knew about. I've only discovered it later in my life, because for me, my single purpose in life was to still grow the business into what I think will be a legacy for my kids and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
for me, it's important that the thinking is right. The business itself will tell you to understand your business. You should be able to interact with many other people who are in the space, get proper mentors, and read a lot. For me, that's important.
Nice, nice. Well done in building that team, and also building into yourselves, in terms of having mentors and things like that. I think I can testify to that. If I didn't have that, people who think a little bit more sharper than me. Actually, one of my key philosophy in terms of hiring people is that individual that comes through to work into my company needs to know a little bit more than I do. And if they don't know, they are not skilled in a particular area, I don't see the value of me hiring them. That's my thing for me. So that's great news there. You've been at it for a while. 10 years is a long time, right? And you haven't looked back. And you haven't said, I'm throwing in the towel, right? Why haven't you thrown in the towel when the turbulence hit? And I'm sure you've had some turbulence along the way.
Look, I've had many turbulences. I've made many mistakes,
Right.
strategic and financial. But I think that the belief that I am building something that's bigger than me has kept me going, and the conviction that whatever I'm building now, will bear fruit in the future.
Right.
Is also an important encourager and an important, but also having a great support system, having people around you who are able to say, family and friends, well, not so much friends, but mostly family, who are able to say to you, look, you are going in the right direction. And it's amazing that you don't see the amount of impact you have, but from time to time you get an inbox from Facebook or Instagram, or you get an email from someone saying, look, we are watching you. What you are doing is great.
Yes.
You might not see it yourself, but there are people out there who constantly looking at you and are inspired by your action. That for me keeps me going.
Yeah. But it would be unfair of me. Anyone who knows me, they say they would testify that any moment of learning from a mistake, I want to know about it, right? Or should I say from a pitfall? So you mentioned that there's many turbulence that have come through from a strategy, from a finance. Is there one particular challenge that you'd like to share with us in detail in terms of what happened and what was the learning from there?
One of my mistakes was to diversify too quickly.
Okay.
So having read,
you went into Tupperware, you went into Bitcoin, property, all in one person.
Yeah, one of my pitfalls was that I went into a restaurant business with the money that I was taking from the business way too quickly, because I had read Robert Kiyosaki, and he had said, cash flow is king, and I really wanted to up my ability to make cash flow. But what I didn't understand was that the timing of when you pivot or when you diversify is as important as diversifying itself, you know.
Right.
So for me, having diversified into a business that that I knew very little about, I invested a lot of money in, I think was one of my biggest mistakes. So I would say to people, you know, stick to what you know best for as long as you can.
Right.
And
Right.
should the need to diversify, test that market first before putting in all your savings and all your, including in the property market, including all your savings, all your investments. So it's very important for you to sort of have a feel for the market or that you want to get into if you choose to diversify.
Matimba, you hear me spoke about Bitcoins, you heard me about speaking about Tupperware and all of those things. I love all of those type of businesses. However, what I've seen it many a times is that I see that individuals, they kind of like spread themselves thin very early in the game. And you've just nailed it here, you know. You went into a space where it was kind of like unknown for you and it took away from you, right? And for me, the biggest learnings there is that you're just spreading yourself thin. Why not come to understand something solidly and then implement it? But my other takeaway is that, and this has been from my personal journey, when you venture into something else, it should be something that is closely related to what you have mastered. So that if it goes wrong, you can roll back to what you know without a huge fail. So for instance, you're doing consulting. So it's still in the same space. So if it's a good opportunity that you have consulted to a big company, even if it doesn't work, and that company doesn't take the opportunity, you can take the opportunity yourself. So it's not time wasted, right?
True. I think as human beings, we get tempted to explore. I mean, our minds, especially the mind of an entrepreneur, is a mind of an explorer, naturally.
Right.
But we need to be able to sort of tame our ambition, you know, so that we are able to, with vision and purpose, singularly focus on what is it that in the first place you sought to achieve. Don't spread yourself too thin, like you've said, and I agree with you on that.
Great. So Matimba, for anyone else starting off on this journey, right, what would be their recommendation? You've been at it for 10 years, lots of homework that you've, I mean, lots of experience that you've gone through. You almost, you know, if anyone else would have gone through some of the challenges that you've gone through along the way, maybe they might have thrown in the towel, you know, but you've stayed on strong and you're still keeping on the journey. And you're still looking up into other different avenues to create some money on that, right? And someone else who is somewhere out there, they're thinking, maybe should I go for property, or maybe should I go and sell tomatoes, or maybe they're skeptical about properties, right? Actually, some people have the means. What would be your 3 kind of like tips that you can give them for them to start?
1, talk to as many people as possible who are in the property space already.
Right.
2, find your sweet spot. Once you have researched everything and you have decided to move on, find what type of sector in the property industry would you like to come in. Would you like to go commercial? Would you like to flip? Would you like to go for new developments? Would you like to get into township property? But number 3, and this is the most important, once you've decided, don't overthink it. Don't procrastinate. Don't wait for tomorrow or for next year. Just do it. You know, get into it, do it. You can only know if it's good or bad once you start doing it. You know, all battles are lost and won on the battlefield. It's no use for you to have what they call an analysis paralysis, where you have to overthink issues, what could go wrong, what could go right. You have done the planning, you've spoken to as many people as possible, you've read as many books as possible. All that would be useless if you don't get into the battlefield and start doing it yourself.
100%. I like that. We're getting in. Thanks a lot, Matimba, on this. Yeah, it's been great having you around. But it will not be right for me if you go without asking you these next 5 questions, maybe 5, maybe 10. But I just want you at the top of your head. You don't have to think on these ones, right? It's a 1-second question. What is your favorite business book?
Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, the founder of Nike.
All right. If we were to throw you back 25 years, or should I say when you were 25, what advice would you give your younger self?
Slow down, slow down. You still have a long way to go. I'd give myself to say, slow down. You still have a long way to go.
Good. Do you have any favorite quote that you live by?
I get paid to make difficult decisions.
I like that. Okay, good one. What does success mean to you?
Firstly, it means good health.
Right.
Secondly, it means my ability to own my own time so that I can spend it on the things that I love and cherish most, which are family.
Right.
And thirdly, it means I have the independency and the time to pass on a little that I have learned through to other people. Nothing gives me joy than sitting with a young person from varsity or from high school and trying to transfer some of this knowledge that I have and the little knowledge that I have to them. So that's what success means to me.
Good. If you had to become any business person at all other than yourself, who would you be and why?
I'll be a better version of my dad. My dad started a business with hardly any education.
Right.
And didn't go to school at all at the height of the apartheid system, and his business at its prime would employ anything from 100 to 150 people.
Wow.
And was able to take all of us to school, all 8 of his children to school, including many other families. There are doctors and lawyers and nurses who have benefited directly from his little contribution that he's made in his community, you know.
Nice.
So for me, it would be just that, to be a better, more ultimate version of my dad. Yeah.
Nice. I'm glad that
let me correct that, of both my parents and my late mom. She was also a businesswoman in her own right. Sure. And she really contributed a lot to our growth. I mean, my ability to persist is a character that I got from both my parents.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. You speak of your next 5 to 10 years, tapping into Africa and potentially going international and bringing in people into South Africa, into townships. If you had to look at your current team now and you say, well, maybe I could be missing 1 or 2 people, who in the world right now, the people that you see who are killing it, people who are doing awesome things, who of those people or the characteristics of those certain individuals would you like to be on your team today to take you to the next step?
I definitely have you on my team. That's one. I think there isn't any one single person that I can name, but what I can tell you is the character or the pedigree of the person that I will look at. You know, I definitely look at the person who has the ability to persist
Right.
in life, the person who wants to get more from life than they currently have. I'd also want people who are more intelligent than me, more brighter than me, but people who have this burning desire in their bellies to be greater than what they currently are, you know?
Nice, nice. Awesome stuff. Matimba, it's been great having you around. I wish all the success to you in all of the endeavors that you're pushing through. Townships always been fascinating to me, and there's different types of levels of townships. I think saving the student accommodation is going to be a hit. I know that there's lots of opportunities, guys, where students are being underserved. Having seen some of your properties and some of the assets that you push, I think that you'll be able to serve them better. And if you're serving people, that's where the money is, right? So thanks a lot having you around. It's been an awesome journey having you here and talking through about your property journey to your success. Matimba, if you want to reach out to him, we're going to put all of his contact details and websites and all of those things in the notes, and you can reach out to him. He's a cool guy to be hanging out around. I am sure that definitely in the future we're going to be inviting him to talk about some of these big things that he is doing and how they are unfolding. So to your success, Matimba, Mr. Masinga, we will see you later.
Thank you. Cheers.